When a person leaves the bathhouse, this is like the Turkish bath. Yilbash begodov. You must put on your clothing. Rosho and you make sure to cover your head in the outer room. There were a number of rooms. You had the entry room, then you had the room that you would undress, and then you had the room where the bath was, where you'd actually go into the like equivalent of Turkish bath. So you shouldn't be chilled with a cold wind, because since your health has been compromised, you have a very precarious situation after you bathe in this intense heat. You have to make sure to dress warmly and especially cover your head that you shouldn't get a draft, because a cold draft could actually put your life into jeopardy. Even in the summertime, you may have a cool wind blowing and the person could be chilled. And if you're chilled, if in this state, you could be actually compromised. And you should pause after you leave the bathhouse until you regained your equilibrium, your sense of comfort. Gufo, and you allow yourself to rest, physically rest. And let the heat leave your body, that you don't feel the effect of the heat, and then you eat. Because if you're still feeling the intensity of the heat absorbed in you, again, the body is not sufficiently relieved of that stress. So therefore, it's not time to eat. Only once it's relieved of that heat that you feel absorbed, then you could eat. If one takes a small nap after you leave the bathhouse, the sauna, before eats, it's very beneficial to rest, to sleep a little bit before you eat. Because there the body is regaining itself, is being fully put into a comfort zone. One should not drink cold water when you leave the bathhouse if it's cold. There's no question in the bathhouse not to drink tea. As long, even we'll see you're thirsty, it's literally could be detrimental, because since your body is so heated, to drink something cold, although it may quench your thirst, but it doesn't. It's going to actually damage your function. What about if he's very thirsty when he leaves the bathhouse? Then and he can't. He has to quench his thirst, and he can't wait any longer. He should add wine or honey to the water, but just water by itself is not enough. It's not sufficient. What person was anointed? He anoints himself with oil when he goes to the bathhouse, and he sweats it out with the oil on his body. So the olive oil will be absorbed in his body while the pores are open. This is very beneficial. And after he puts the oil on, he showers. Hishtat means he's doused with the cold water. Harisa, that's very good. That's being fully responsible. We spoke about bloodletting. People would only bloodlet. Why? Because they had high blood pressure. But he says a person, this is based on the Gemara, a person should not do it too often. Should not do it too often. Lo yakiz elam tzorach lo. Only in dire situations where you must have it. The person feels like he's having a stroke. He feels dizzy from high blood pressure. That's the only time a person should let blood to relieve the pressure. Otherwise, a person shouldn't do it whatsoever. And if you're going to have to let blood in the summer or winter, it makes no difference, only to a small degree. Let the pressure out a little bit, not fully. Nisan umat b'mei Tishrei. Do some of the bloodletting in Nisan, entering into the spring, and in Tishrei, which is the end of the summer. Ume'achar chamishim shana, if a person is beyond 50 years old, we'll see this is already, you're becoming a senior citizen at 50. Lo yakus klau, under no circumstance should you let blood. The body already doesn't have the inner strength to tolerate bloodletting. Now it's interesting. We find that the Levites, their service was in the Mishkan or in the Beis Hamikdash. In the Mishkan was to carry the vessels, to sing, and to be the doorkeepers, to open and close the doors in the Mishkan and in the temple. Gatekeepers. We learn from there, once he reaches the age of 50, the service is from 30 to 50. Here's a why. Because at 50, one's strength begins waning. It begins waning. And because his strength wanes, he's still qualified, but he should not be officially appointed for these tasks, which are very, take tremendous amount of effort and strength. Because the person's strength is waning, he should not be in that position. So he's saying the same thing. Until 50, a person is still strong enough. He's not on the downswing. Once you reach 50, you're on the downswing. When you're in the downswing, under no circumstance should you let blood. Because they're being more vulnerable to many things. After 50, you should not let blood whatsoever. Person lets blood when he can, even slightly, that day you should not go into the bathhouse. Because since letting blood compromises your viability and your strength, you go in there, you're going to be compromised. The loyakas, the Yitzhak person is going on the trip. There's a whole discussion. He's going to be walking long distances. After he lets blood, he should not do on that day. He should not do it. He should not go on that trip. And the day that he returns from this trip, because he's fatigued, in a fatigue state, a person should not let blood. The day that you let blood, the amount of food you eat should be less, because we discussed earlier that when you eat, it taxes the system. The heart has to work harder for the digestive system. So therefore, the day that you let blood, since the body has been compromised, it has to regain itself. As a result of that, you should eat less than you normally eat. Less than you normally eat. And you should rest on that day, not exert yourself. Lo yigav, lo yisamel. You should not toil or work up a sweat. Lo yatayel. You shouldn't take a walk. I mean, go strolling. It's a day you should be resting, undisturbed, that you should be able to regain yourself. I mentioned earlier that probably the most taxing, all-consuming act that a man could do is engage in sexual cohabitation. Why? Because a person, when that happens, every bit of your blood, your emotion is all concentrated in doing that act itself. That's what happens. So he's going to speak about, that's what we said earlier, that the day a person is going to travel, which is exertion, he should not cohabit. If he ate heavily or he ate something substantial, you should give yourself some time, because for the same reason, the body is preoccupied with the blood system in the digestive process, and it's not a good idea to tax the system, like I said, at both ends. But he's going to speak of something else, that the semen of a man is really, that's his what we call his virility. His semen is his inner, that's his core strength. If a person expends too much semen, ultimately it will compromise his health. It'll wear him down. He'll be sapped. And therefore, he's going to show in a moment that people who engage sexually more than they should, especially if they're like middle-aged or even a little bit younger, it's going to bring premature age upon them. It will weaken them. And it'll have very obvious consequences, as he will show in the moment. And it's all based on the Gemara. Let's see, and a psukim. Shichva Zera, 19. Semen. He koach haguf v'chayov. That is the strength of the body, the semen. That is your life, umora hinayim, and that which allows you to have illuminate your eyes, meaning good eyesight. And if you expend more than you should from the body, haguf kolo, the body begins deteriorating, the physicality, the koach kolo, your strength wanes, the chayiv ovdim, and literally you're forfeiting your life. If you expend too much of the seed, of the semen, this is when King Solomon says through his great wisdom, don't give to women your strength. And this is what he's referring to. By engaging too much, more than you should sexually, you're actually giving your whole being, your strength, your essence to the women. Through them, you're giving it up. One who's immersed in this, meaning he does it excessively. What's considered excessive? Zikna kofetz solov. He will prematurely age. Suddenly he ages. The kochel toshash, and his strength wanes. Vein of chaos, and his sight starts weakening. The reach ro nodik mipiv, and he immediately develops bad mouth odor, bad breath, because again, today there's a test they have that they're able to tell a person, God forbid, that if he has cancer, just with like you have a breath analyzer test, the person has alcohol in the system. They're able, through certain things today, that if a person has a certain odor in his breath, it's an indication that there's a certain bacteria in his system or some kind of cancerous cell, and it manifests itself in one's breath. So an indication that the body's starting to decay or weaken or start being minimized, it expresses itself in bad breath. Okay? One second. Umishechio, and from his underarms. We're talking about body odor. Body odor from your mouth, from your armpits. Sarosha v'gabas einov, rise einov, no shows. And once the hair, he starts losing his hair. He loses his eyebrows. The hair from his eyebrows start falling out. The rise einov, no shows, and his eyelashes. He loses his eyelashes. The sar zakono, the shechio, his beard thins. The shechio, and the hair and his underarms also thin. The sar raglov robo, but the hair on his legs increase. The sheen of noflos, his teeth weaken. They're in their sockets, those sockets loosen. Varbi kavim chutz me'elu b'molov, and he's susceptible to many other pains. Cave. Amru chachmei harofim. Now the Rambam is speaking about even secular doctors. The great professors of medicine say, echad me'elef meis b'shar chalon. 1 out of 1,000 dies of other illnesses. The vast majority of people die from being too sexually involved. Because since they're so sapped, because they expend more semen than they should, this makes them vulnerable to many illnesses and diseases. It actually, their immune system is compromised. And therefore, they're subject to many things. Lefichot tzorchod lizor b'dover said this person has to be extra careful in this area of behavior. Imrotza lichos b'tov. If you want to live well, healthily, this area should be monitored. Don't overdo it. Don't indulge. Lo yivol el shim segufa bori. V'chozak b'yoser. You should only have relations if you feel you're physically very healthy. Yeah. V'miskasha harbe shlo dato. If a person sometimes a young person, very often, even if he has no thoughts, just naturally he wakes up with an erection. That's the indication of being healthy, a healthy person. But a person has that, at times you have to relieve that pressure. So a person has to engage in procreation to relieve that. Because again, it creates a stress. And although he gets himself distracted, Hakishi Bo Kishoya, the erection remains. So the erection is not related to have any thought, sexual thought. It's just a reality of his being, his function. V'yimtza COVID being mosnov ulamat, and so that he feels like weight. He feels from his waist downward, he's being drawn downward. V'chozok uchuti abeitzim nimshochim sorcham. He feels like tremendous pressure in his testicles because of this, and he feels like always hot because he has to release. He needs a release, like you have a safety valve. He has to release the semen to create that balance within himself to be functional. This person should cohabit, and it's like medication for him to habit. It will resolve his issue. Let's stop. One organ in the body, the more you sate it, the more hungry it becomes. The more you deny it, the more sated it becomes. And it says it's a small organ. The reproductive organ of the male, you think, you can only eat to a certain point. After that, you can't eat more. You get tired of it. But when it comes to the sexual act, the more a person engages in that act, the more he wants it. A person who weans himself from it and does it less often, that person has control. He doesn't always feel that sexual undercurrent in his life. So you have people, they're indulgent in this area, and therefore these people, their minds are continuously occupied with these kinds of thoughts, because he always has to satisfy that sexual drive, because he's feeding the drive. The more you feed it, it becomes a monster. The less you feed it, you tame it. It's under your control. So let's understand this. It becomes very interesting. The more you feed it, that means the more you want it. So literally, it's a spiraling down effect. The person actually, as Rambam explains, if this is the core of your health, the semen. So the more you satisfy it by being involved, that means you're expending more semen. Ultimately, the end result is what? He's going to be what? He'll be like a dried prune in a number of years, because he sapped himself of everything. The person who takes control and weans himself from it, he's in a good place. He's sated. He's satisfied. Being satisfied, he's not going to expend that semen unless he has to, for the sake of procreation, for the sake of, as he's talking over here, but otherwise he's not. Lo yivul adam v'usavea. Person should engage in cohabitation if you're full. Same idea. Since the body is at this moment digesting the food, the act of cohabitation takes a tremendous amount of strain, stress, puts stress on the body. See, again, you're taxing the system too much. V'lo roiv. The person should not be hungry. Only once the food starts digesting, then it's okay. Because the major part of the process of digestion has been addressed. So now the body could be directed and invested in this act. Once you see whether he has to do his bodily functions before he cohabits and after he cohabits. Lo yival mu'umad v'lo miyushav. A person should not engage in cohabitation in a standing position or a sitting position. Okay? One should not cohabit in a bathhouse. Again, why? Not because it's a bathhouse. Because we said before, the intense heat puts tremendous stress on the person. Therefore, it's not a good idea. And the day that he's going to the bathhouse, because after the person habits, he actually has to regain his internal strength. So going on that day, you're in a weakened, your constitution is weakened. Not on the day that you had blood let from you, and not the day that you're going to travel. We're talking about not traveling, you're sitting on a train or a car. It means you're walking. Or be a minute there, or you just returned from a trip. Lo lifneim, lo lachreim. Not before you go on the trip or when you return from the trip. So basically it's saying if you're in a taxed state, fatigued state, it's not a good time to do it. Because since your body already has been traumatized to a degree through this over involvement in work, in stress, this itself is too much. It's called abuse. You're abusing the body.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.